I want to move on to our topic tonight. And so Pete's been looking into the infamous case of Anneliese Michel. Anyone that knows it, I'm going to turn it over to you, Pete, in a minute. But anyone that knows it knows at the very least, it's infamous. It is the basis for the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, but there were a couple of other movies as well. I have pulled up some audio, which I can play at the appropriate time for some of the talking that you did. But I'm going to let you let's go look into the case from start to finish and see what we find. So, Pete, take us away.
Okay. Well, I honestly, I really don't remember where it had happened at. All I know is that. Well, sorry. Go ahead. Hello.
Hey, you there, Arlene?
Here. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I have some notes? I mean, I can just go through just some of the stuff, like where it started and all that other stuff.
Yeah, she was German.
Yeah. Okay. So I was writing this down. Anneliese Michel was born in West Germany. And I didn't write the town down, but she was born in a Bavarian town in that area, Bavaria, West Germany, in 50 something. I didn't write good notes, y'all. I'm sorry. No, seriously.
1952.
52. Okay, thank you, because I'm looking down at the date when everything. In September 68, she was 16 years old, and she had the first episode of losing consciousness, passing out, and then she had the experience of sleep paralysis with something holding her down on her chest. In August of 69, she had the second event similar to that, and the family took her to the family doctor, who also brought in a neurologist, and she was diagnosed as possibly having seizures. Between 69 and 72, there were 2 additional episodes, bad episodes. The doctors finally decided to prescribe medications, an anticonvulsant and an anti-seizure. And they did electroencephalograms, and they were cleared as normal. They had some marks, some hits, but they weren't anything like would be expected. She was having psychotic issues or she was epileptic at that time. I mean, they were cleared as normal because there were no hits. In 1973, she starts hearing phenomena. Here's knocking that her sisters also heard, and other people heard. And then she also began to hear a voice damning her to hell. She began to hear audio, like, clairaudience, where she was hearing the voice of a demon telling her that she was damned to hell. And she in response to this, naturally, a devout Roman Catholic will turn to their faith. So she would say the rosary, or she would, kneel in front of icons, she'd kneel in front of the statues. And her mother witnessed her kneeling in front of the statue of the Virgin, and she said that her daughter's eyes turned completely black, not just the pupils, just the black, and that when she interrupted her, or she went to, like grab her or whatever, she noticed that her hands had actually turned into what looked like paws with claws, basically, which was probably the manifestation over her hands. But the way they describe it, it's like she actually saw, animal-like paws with claws on the end of it. Same year, 73, she described seeing demonic faces. And then the first time she began to feel that the devil was inside her. The smells began too, and everybody had smells. There were smells of drains, feces, burning feces. And they took her back to the neurologist, and this neurologist, the family said he advised them to consult the church. He denied it later, but he probably did. So they both went and they searched for a priest. The diagnosis, however, she went to see a Freudian psychiatrist in the meantime. So they didn't stop the route of, medical. He diagnosed her as neurotic with possible epilepsy or epileptic patterns. And then they began to give her more medicines. Her bizarre behavior after she was diagnosed, I guess, as epileptic pattern, she began to manifest even more bizarre behavior, like the eating of bugs. She had extraordinary strength. She is said to have squeezed an apple to mush and squeezed it in her hand and made it explode. In the house, the priest that they found, one priest, actually two, they were hesitant at first, and they told them to continue the medical treatments. But then in November of 1975, after they approached them, the first exorcism was performed. And that's as far as I got before I began to notice in the audio that I was listening to some extraordinary things that she said, which I'll talk about later. But I'll pick it up. I'll let you pick it up there, Pete.
Well, she was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy, which causes hallucinations, causes disfigurements and of the joints and the hands. I mean, she would move into different positions, like arching her back and things like that. So I mean, that's all part of what she was diagnosed with. The hallucinations and things, being of a Catholic background, as she was, as well as the family was too, really kind of fed into the hallucinations she was dealing with. And I really think that at a certain point in time, she stopped taking medications. So, I mean, she wasn't taking the medication all of the time.
Right.
So
right.
This,
Closer to the end, she actually stopped. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she felt that if she was being she wanted to try to make whatever she thought was going on, make herself an example to other folks for her strength of religion. So that's why she stopped. Now, one of the things the family did too, when she was in the weakened state, because she stopped eating at one point, and they would help her pray, and they would help her to kneel and to stand up, and her family was also causing a lot of damage to her as well, because she couldn't even hold herself up. And her knees were damaged because of her wanting to pray, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying that she shouldn't, but my thoughts is that she should have kept up with her medication if she wanted to go and seek an exorcism. I really would thought that she would have survived that if she kept up with both sides. And I understand, temporal lobe epilepsy it wasn't as researched as it is now. So I'm sure the medications kind of sucked, but it was at least something better than what was happening with her. All these contortions and things that she was going through is all part of the temporal lobe epilepsy as well. So I can see how a religious family would see that being demonic. Now, the spells that you're talking of, in a sickened state as she was, and I don't know how well they kept up with her cleanliness, but I mean, I'm sure that probably had something to do with it as well. And if you're in a state of being, of thinking that she's possessed, and she very well could have been. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but you just kind of all of that kind of feeds into the mania. Now, I really think that the family really didn't do her justice by not pursuing other avenues to get her at least stable and healthy.
Right.
It just seemed like as she started declining, I mean, they went into panic mode, which, I can understand. If my daughter was doing that, I guess, you would want to try anything and everything. But at the same point, if she's not getting any better and because the exorcism didn't help her either. She died. The exorcism didn't help her either. So I'm not saying the ritual doesn't help folks, because the ritual does help folks. But I just think it's a shame. I think that woman suffered for no reason at all, to be honest with you.
I agree with you that the medication might have helped her, continue, and probably would have helped her better with the with going through the exorcism.
I really think she could have pulled out of it if they were true to, if they were going to do the religious angle as well as the medicinal angle. I really think she could have pulled out of that.
Well,
I think
too,
when they
go ahead.
I think when it was the time when they stopped the medication is when she sealed her fate. Now, on a religious side, I could see that if she was wanting to.
Hang on, Pete. I was going to say that, and I agree with you. And she stopped eating because I read in one account that a doctor, post-mortem said that up to within a week before she died.
She died of starvation.
Right. If they would have put her into the hospital or had her at home and put an IV in to feed her and give her the hydration she needed, she wouldn't have succumbed like she did during the exorcism. So that's true.
What really gets me too is that the mother and the father and the two priests were arrested, and they faced trial, and the judge gave them time served because he felt that he couldn't give them any more than what they were suffering through right now, to know that they basically killed that girl. But I don't know. I mean, putting them in a jail cell, it's not going to bring her back. But but you still have to make an example to the community of what should be done versus what shouldn't be done. I think honestly they got off right, and I don't honestly believe that they were trying to hurt her, but ultimately they did.
67 exorcisms is a lot.
67 exorcisms, sometimes 2 or 3 a week, is what I read. I know what did change. What did change this case? That particular case really changed the Catholic Church's view. They were already cagey about exorcism, okay, but that changed their.
And it should have. They should have, because that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible.
Well,
I'm just real passionate about that. I just feel so bad. I just feel so bad for the woman.
In defense,
she went through a lot.
In defense of the priest, they declined. They wouldn't pursue it initially. In defense of them, they insisted that they continue the medical treatment. Okay, but from the Catholic's point of view, if you think from the mindset of a devout Catholic, and this is pre-Vat II Catholics, the parents are pre-Vatican II. Okay. There are cases of ecstasies. There is such a thing as divine ecstasy. We had ecstatic saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Catherine of Siena, Saint Anthony, Saint Benedict. They go into the ecstatic state of interacting directly with Christ. So that is well known, and that is an experience that they would have known of. Okay. And then, and I think in the movie Emily Rose, they do hit on this, the faith itself, that when she said she didn't want to be fed or anything, they left it in the hands of God. And it was the faith itself that was informing them to do that. That was the test of their own faith, that, they're going to leave it to God. And so that doesn't exonerate anybody, but that's the mindset.
I was going to say, I can understand the mindset, but at what point is it sickness or the mania of what is going on, that they would think that the faith is pushing them to do that. I mean,
they're that devout, at no point were they going to give that up, because they were devout in their faith, and they even saw her death as the will of God.
Well,
so
part of her death, though, at the very end, if you remember, I don't know if you watched the show, but at the very end, she said she was visited by the Virgin Mary and was given the choice to be freed of the
Yeah,
demons are saved souls. You
yeah,
know, I kind of
because she,
believe,
yeah,
you know, if a person is in that state and, you know, the Virgin Mary comes to them and tells them that, you know, if she can either stay there or she can go back and, you know, face more demons and go through the suffering to show people that demons do exist.
right, right, and that's in the
But
movie,
that's
and
still
that's yeah, but
but
wait,
that's
wait,
still the hallucination though from the temporal lobe epilepsy.
wait.
But if it's
This
not,
was her. This was her.
But what
This
if it
was
is?
in
We can
real
do
life.
this all night.
In real life, well, I'm gonna take you to the spiritual side in a minute because I've got her voice, I've got some of the tapes on, and then I'm gonna tell you what she's saying. Okay, but in her life, okay, she may have been influenced, but she was the one who told her parents and the priest that she wanted to suffer. They don't mention the visitation of anything. She was the one who said that she wanted to offer up her suffering for the people who did not believe in God. Now, okay, this again, it's okay, she's mentally.
But at some point in
Listen,
time, you have to take
listen,
responsibility over the person that is ill and make
listen
the
to
decision
me.
for them that makes the
She
most
is
sense.
having
She was
mental
still
issues.
under, but she was not in her right mind. She was under hallucination. She was not in her right mind. Her
possession
parents
is
should have made
not
that
a
decision for her.
diagnosis.
Hey,
Right.
but it's still to say
Do
that
you
it's
believe?
possession.
Okay,
You still
let's stop. Do you believe
no.
in
No, it ain't.
Look, but to say it's possession, you still have to go through everything. You have to still go through a list to see what everything is
they
before you
did?
even think it's possession.
Well,
No,
and
they didn't.
they
No, they
had
didn't.
wait, they had one, two, three, four the psychiatrists, two psychiatrists, a neurologist, and another physician. Okay, working on her continuously while the
No, they did.
priests
No, they
were.
weren't working
Yes,
on her
they did.
continuously.
Yes, they
They
were.
were
They
not
worked
working
on
on
her
her
up
continuously.
until exactly the year of the first exorcism, up until 1973. Until 1975, she saw the last physician she saw was a psychiatrist who diagnosed her, and that supports what you say as an epileptic. Okay, that was a diagnosis of the Freudian. She had epileptic patterns. She was neurotic with epileptic patterns.
But epilepsy and temporal lobe epilepsy are two different things.
They went for three different opinions, okay, and all of them, and even the two priests, when they first went to the priest, said keep her on her medicines, keep because they knew what they had to prove in order to get
Of which they did not do. And when she started, no, she didn't, because
no,
she stopped taking her
Pete,
medication.
not
Now, come
arguing,
on, we
okay,
just talked
we're
about
having a
that.
discussion. I'm saying
This is a discussion.
I was about to say, I thought you meant the priest, okay? I know that the parents went along with her when she got off of her medication, but I'm not, this is an argument unless we tone it down, okay? I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying mental illness is a factor in that, okay? And they did. They dropped the ball on this child, okay? They really did. Now, I mean, if it was me, everything possible medical would have been done under any circumstance, and I believe in everything supernatural and I believe my Catholic faith, but I'd have I'd have her in a hospital and everything. I understand. These are different people. This is a different culture. This is a different church.
I understand that. I understand that. But I just feel terribly again for the woman, because she suffered greatly and she didn't have to. Her parents did not do everything that they should have for her. She should have been in a facility. She should have been watched 24 hours a day.
We've established that. Okay, now let's move on to the reality of possession. Do you believe in demonic possession? Do you believe in the ability of the supernatural to invade and for the demonic to invade the personality, to subdue the nascent personality and take residence inside a human? Spiritually possess them.
If all else fails, yes. I've seen things like you've seen things.
So you believe in it then, right? So at some point,
if in a last resort, if nothing else is showing up, yes. I'm actually a very religious person. I don't talk about it that much.
I know, okay, but I'm saying I
Yeah.
understand 100% where you're coming from. Okay, they dropped the medical ball, but
Yeah.
there is very clearly a case to be made that she was in fact demonically possessed. She could be an epileptic and be demonically possessed at the same time. Okay, it could be that's triggering her epilepsy.
I understand that, but my
She didn't have
my
the full
opinion still
symptoms
stands.
until she was 16
My
years old.
opinion still stands. You're not going to change me on
That's
that.
what I said. We've established that they failed her. Okay, so we need to just we've established that. Okay, what I'm saying is
Yeah.
the two can coincide, illness. So okay, so they failed her, and they also took her at her own word. Okay, and that was what I was
Of
trying
which
to
they
explain.
shouldn't. They should. Of which they shouldn't have.
Because of their Catholic faith. They did because of their faith. Their belief in something supernatural. Okay, they didn't because of that. Okay, so you don't know we really don't know what went on between the parents, the other
No, we
children.
don't. No, this is our opinions. We weren't in the room. I understand that too.
Well, this is what we can say from all the available evidence that we had. We weren't the doctors who looked at her. We weren't the parents. We weren't the priests who did this. Okay, I'm just talking about the state of possession. You can be, you can have cancer and a demon can possess you. You can be perfectly healthy and a demon can possess you, or more demons or whatever. And it can be mistaken as religious ecstasy or mental illness. Dean can testify to that. You worked in institutions with these people. A lot of those people in there are possessed, are attached, are being oppressed by supernatural entities, not always demons, but they're being attached, okay, or they're being oppressed. There's that a lot of them are. And what these spirits do, they suppress the personality. Schizophrenia, okay, it's we all know what schizophrenia is, but in a lot of those cases where it came out of nowhere and there's maybe some remote ancestor went crazy once, then you have to start looking at a supernatural explanation. These people were not intelligent enough, it seems to me, that they were just not intelligent enough to handle it properly, even if it wasn't a demonic possession, even if it was just epilepsy. Okay, I think that they would take out the whole demonic element. She was possessed, she was sick, she probably would have perished anyway, because they don't seem to have the basic intelligence that was necessary. But these are people.
Well, unfortunately, this happened back in the late '60s, early '70s, and if it would have happened these days, they would have probably been able to pinpoint it a whole heck of a lot more than they could have there, and that's just sad.
But Bernadine, it happens these days, and people don't pinpoint it, and people miss it entirely. And there's no mental history, right?
Right. I remember, in the story here, she began to eat flies, spiders, and coal, and bit off the head of a dead bird. I don't remember that in the movie, but it says it in the article. And in one instance, she crawled under the table and barked like a dog for 2 days. So, yeah, they said that, even the family shouldn't have let her stay under the table for 2 days and bark like a dog.
Right. And I agree 100%. 100% with that.
But she wouldn't eat
doesn't
food,
make sense, though.
but she ate all these other things.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer
if
that.
I saw somebody doing that, in the movie, there's a question. The prosecutor asks the question, and I'm sorry, folks, this is live radio. I'm out in my kitchen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it's echoing. Even in the movie, the guy says, well, if you saw somebody on a street corner eating a bunch of bugs and stuff, wouldn't you think that that person was crazy and do something about it? And they were asking the father. And he said, yeah, and so it's like, well, why did you think she was possessed instead of crazy? But there were mitigating factors, or at least contributing factors for them to make their decision. But you're right, under the table for 2 days, barking.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm going to take that thing from out of, and you shut up, okay? You can't go bark in my house for 2 days. But when you listen to, I found recording. There's several of them on YouTube. So anybody that wants to go.
Well, you got to watch out for some of those though. Some of them are false.
Well, a couple of them they maybe, but they're.
I'm not. I'm not saying all of them are. I'm just saying some of them.
I pulled up one that I actually had not listened to before, and I'm going to play just a little bit of it.
Is it the one that's in the German in the German? Because I think that was German. One of the real ones.
Yeah, it's in German and it has the subtitles. Now I'm going to let you just to hear what we're talking about in the way of supernatural. Okay, so I'm going to hold this to my microphone because I don't have a way to hook it up. So let's go. Okay, so don't listen to that with the lights off at any time. It sounds like it won't bother you, but it does. No. What she's saying, okay, this is the one in German, and they do have subtitles. And what caught me, I was just looking for something just to do that for us to play in the background, so we could, people could have a little idea of how bad it was. And I noticed in the translation right there, she's talking about priests getting married. Okay, she's talking about priests getting married and they can't serve the church. Okay, some of it you could say, well, it's just her Catholic upbringing that's making her say something in a funny voice. Okay, not a lot, because she's what I heard her talk about and what I saw translated. She talked about the falling away of the modern church. She talked about the apostate something in a funny voice. She talked about the removal of the communion rails. Because she talked about the turning to face the audience. In other words, doing none of this had reached Bavaria. Okay. She talked about wanting to die for the sins or make her die for the sins. Then she even talks about this, how much they, talking to the priests, want to see the Eucharist delivered to the hands. Yes, I assure you, the demon says. And she says the communion rails must go back in, okay? Because they were taking them down. Okay, she had not experienced this. She was housebound. She had not experienced any of the changes. Okay, it began to change when I was in elementary school in the 60s and the late 60s and into the 70s. We began to change, but it was not until the end of the 70s, the 80s, where we began to. I think even after that, where it became normal to receive the Eucharist in the hand. And if you take it out of context to people who are trying right now to save the church, okay, the pre-Vatican II traditionalists who are trying to save this church, save the Roman Catholic Church, or clear out the apostasy. That is one of the main things that these apostates wanted to accomplish, was to take the host in the human hand and touch it, because that desanctifies it. That denies the holy presence, the presence of Christ in the host, and it puts it in your hand. It used to be that when you knelt down at the rail, when I was little, when I got first communion, you knelt down at the communion rail. They held the platen or the paten underneath your chin, and the priest put that thing on your tongue. And the only reason he could touch it is that when he was ordained, his hands touched the Holy Chrism. He was ordained as a priest. My daughter saw a report about visions that were not connected to any of this, but visions of saints that had said that in purgatory, okay, now we're in a Catholic concept, Pete, so just follow me here. In purgatory,
I'm listening. I'm not saying anything.
These priests' hands, these hellish priests, their hands are on fire, burning all the time, because they touched the chrism and their hands were holy, and they did these evil deeds that they're doing. Okay, so what I am seeing, and I haven't even listened to the whole translation. This girl, she's talking about stuff that's happening now in the church. Do you understand? These demons were talking about how much they wanted.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
And the demons, she is saying, as the demon, these people are stupid. These stupid people, but let them have it. In one voice, she's saying they're stupid and they don't know it, but they're laughing because they can take. They'll take them. That right there just shocked me. It just perked me up so much because I was like, how? I mean, this is exactly what we're going through in the church. Because one of these investigations, we're going to need to look into the Catholic Church. So get ready for that one. That one's coming. I am shocked because I've listened to the growling and things before, seeing it translated and seeing the words that this child is saying. And know that I'm hearing these exact problems. These are the problems that the church is facing today. I'm flabbergasted. People, she's buried, and people do go to her gravesite, and
she was made a saint.
Is she? I don't think she was. I think
I read she was made a saint.
I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know, but she might be in the first level of like canonization. Maybe, I don't know. I think she should be from a strictly religious point of view. This girl suffered. Okay, yes, the lack of medical care and stupidity played into it, but she suffered tremendously, and she said and revealed things in her suffering that are important to the faithful of this world today. So that's where I am on. I mean, we can going to continue with her actual story in a minute, but I'm like, I'm ready to sending out emails. I'm going to church militant with this because I don't believe that they've ever covered it. This child predicted things that are destroying our church today. Okay. But so off the soapbox. Okay. So she dies. They do 67 exorcisms in a year and a half on her. She dies. And then they bury her, and then they have the trial, right? Am I right, Pete? That's how it goes. They charge the parents. They charge the parents with manslaughter. Was it manslaughter?
I think it was manslaughter.
They wanted to charge a negligent homicide, but they charged the two priests, Alt, and the other guy, I think Lenz or something was his last name, and her parents with manslaughter. And then it went to trial, right?
I think it was involuntary manslaughter.
So what was the result of the trial? Because you said they got off.
The result was, they did. It was time served basically because the judge thought that that he couldn't place anything any more on them than what they've already suffered through losing the child and them being held responsible for it. He held the priests and the parents responsible for her death.
Mm-hmm. And then, but let him go. Somebody got they got probation.
Yes.
What was it? The priest got probation.
I think so. I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Well,
I think it was probation and counseling or something. I can't remember.
And then the next weird thing that happens is that they had buried her. And then like 2 years after the trial and everything was, they exhumed her. Because they said,
there was something. Wasn't there something about that they didn't think that she should be in consecrated ground because of what had gone through with her, and
what I read,
a nun had a vision that Annelise's body was still intact,
and it wasn't when they dug it up. But they didn't. That's not why. Somebody, at least the article I read, the parents said that she had been buried. Hurriedly, in other words, just
in a cheap
coffin, right? And that they wanted to.
She wasn't prepared properly.
That I guess that they could afford. I guess they had saved up or whatever, that they could afford to put her in a better coffin. So they appealed to whoever the authority was to have her exhumed, and everything was done proper and all that. And she was moved out of that coffin into a one that is I don't know if it was metal, but I know it was lined with metal. In a better coffin. So, and they inspected her corpse, and it was natural, appropriate deterioration is what they called it, appropriate to be in. So there was nothing about, the what is it called? The name escapes me. Incorruptible. There was nothing incorruptible about her. So, and then they also put a headstone. So, I mean, that's
unofficial saint. I just read it.
She's an unofficial saint. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
over
like
30 years later.
that's like one step.
Yeah.
And they need they need to listen to hours and hours of the actual whoever has the archives of those tapes. They need to listen through every bit of it, because I think she should be beatified. I mean, she would have to be performing. It's just so long. They'd have to have miracles attributed to her and all that, and it probably will happen. But anyway, so that was the next weird thing is that the girl's body can't let her rest in peace. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just her shell, but I guess the parents felt better, they would feel better if they put her in a better coffin or whatever. So, to me, I don't, it's like violating her grave to me. I'm just not a person that's unless it's for like murder, or something. They're going to test the body. I'm just like, leave them where they are. But, and so now her gravesite is a pilgrimage place, which naturally was going to happen because of the nature of it. And I don't know if the priests are even alive still that did it. But this case, and probably all the attention that went to the case that actually was The Exorcist, it just forced the church to look at the ritual. And so that went on, and Pope Paul, I guess, was until 1978. Pope John Paul came in, and he was the one that changed the ritual Romanum, to bringing it up from the 1614 version. He brought it up to date with some changes. But then Pope Benedict, who was traditionalist, okay, he changed it back. So now actually the original ritual is set back, and there is education within the church. There is more training and education to do with the rite of exorcism and rendering the rite, and we actually have an increase in exorcists in answer to the continuing decay of our world. Now we have an increase in exorcists, as oddly enough, so it went from tamping them down to saying, well, we need to look at this because this is real. There is temporal authority, and then there's spiritual authority, and the church, the faith is built on supernatural. It's the supernatural, the belief in a supernatural, extra natural being, Christ, who is supernal to all, whatever. And so he tells us in his word, he casts out demons. He himself casts them out, and he tells us that these things are real, and this is the doctrine of the church. They are real, and we've seen it so many times. Okay, we've seen it. I don't need to be in the room with Anneliese Michel to know that demonic possession happens. I didn't need to see what's his name that they did the Exorcist movie over to know that I'm told by Christ, that it happens. He met a boy. A boy came to him who was possessed by legion, and he sent them into a herd of pigs, and they threw themselves off a cliff. Okay, I'm a Catholic. I believe in him, and I believe that was the truth. Okay, and as it turns out, it's helped people. But this is a particularly grisly case. It would have been better, and I agree with you, Pete, it would have been better if they would have kept up her health, because if they were keeping up with her health, and if they were rendering all medical care that they could, and despite that this crap still kept going on, then it kind of supports
That's
the
what
whole
I stated in the beginning. That's what I stated in the beginning.
And I agree with you in the beginning. And I'm not making an excuse for the stupidity when I just tried to put it into context of the concept of the way the people were thinking, as devout religious Catholics. And they haven't been portrayed as anything else since then, not in the movie or another. So we know that they were very devout Catholics. People say that, that the demons lie, that these evil spirits lie. And that is not true. Okay. The devil, quote unquote, whoever you may think it is, evil, the principle of evil alive in the world, knows what's going to happen to you in the future, just like, let's say, God does. Okay. They know the future. They even know when they're going to end and all this. They know more than we know about the future. They can tell you the truth up to a certain point. So the veracity of what she's saying, what these things are saying through her, is I'm satisfied that, you know, that they were definitely talking about a future time when this was going to happen to the church. Okay, which even casts it in more of a sort of religious ecstasy type thing. Okay, so they tell you, the people say, you know, he's the devil's a liar. Actually, the way he gets you, or the way he quote unquote would get you, is by telling you the truth. You know, it's true, this or that, it's true, and then tell you that you can avoid that, or you can change that, or, you know, and that's where the idle hands come in, and the duplicity of evil. You know, so finally she's at rest, and her grave is now a pilgrimage site. You know, and I guess everybody has to make up their mind on what they believe about the case.